Hi guys, Dandelion Song here, and we're back for part 7 of the Pope's visit. I was looking around. The Simpsons have a lot of inner codes, so I was just taking a look to see what they had about the Pope. I didn't look very deeply, but apparently, according to Russia Today, the Simpsons are Catholics, so that's something to keep in mind. On the 25th, the Pope is going to be meeting with world leaders at the United Nations at 8:30 in the morning. It's interesting how the gematria of this comes full circle in the English gematria. And we do see there are 255, which we have seen this 55 again and again and again. This shares Jewish gematria with fallen angels. Akhenaten. This is the American pharaoh, Akhenaten. Holy, 4 police, diamonds. So in the course of doing these parts that I've been doing, someone wrote a Wikipedia page. So now there's a Pope Francis's visit to the United States Wikipedia page, and that's really nice because it has all these links right in it. So following the link to the United Nations building, we just scroll down and see, just a lot of people don't realize this, that it really is Rockefeller connected. And this is just an understatement. But this is something that we need to keep in mind when we're looking at everything that has to do with the Vatican, including that the Nicene Council wrote and edited the Bible, and then later it was also edited by Freemasons for the King James Version. And I'm going to come to, that's going to be a point that we're going to come to when we look at the main headquarters of the UN. So we need to bring the UN main headquarters on Mount Hermon into the discussion, because Mount Hermon is the place where the first Anunnaki supposedly fell. They were alternately known by different names. One of them was Simjazi, was the leader of the Away mission, but he was not the person who started the fall. In this article, this probably isn't the best article, but in this article on Before It's News, this writer talks about the connection between the ancient fall of the Nephilim in the Bible on Mount Hermon, and the summit is now occupied by a UN headquarters. This is also the place where Jesus came in the region of Caesarea Philippi, Mount Hermon, and asked his disciples, saying, "Who do men say that I am?" Okay, I won't read the whole thing, but this is where he says, "Upon this rock." Actually, oh my gosh, they don't show it here. So they have the 13th, 14th, 15th, 16th, 17th, but not the 18th scripture. Here, I have it for you. So Jesus, which was a switch, a bait and switch name from Joshua in the Hebrew Bible. Then when the Nicene Council changed it to the Greek, Greek god Zeus, and they changed this name to Jesus. Nowhere in the Hebrew version is there anything close to Jesus or Jesus. So they completely changed the name, and I'm not saying that everything in the Bible is wrong attributed to Jesus or Joshua, but it's heavily distorted. And anyway, what they did is why would they have Joshua build? He says, and look at this, look at these numbers. It's the phi number. And I showed you Matthew. Matthew has to do with the blue apple and Bergoglio. And it also has to do with 923, actually. So, but here in Matthew, with the phi scripture 1618, he says, upon this rock I will build my church, and the gates of hell will not overpower it. Well, why did he choose Mount Hermon, where that was the fall of the Anunnaki, or the Pleiadian angels, when they decided to breed with the daughters of men? So there's a video here about the UN facility on Nephilim ground, and here's the video. So we also need to realize that this is also known as Baal God. All of these names having to do with Pan, actually. And it's located 25 miles north of the Sea of Galilee. And there is a grotto of Pan here. Now Pan is the proto I guess, anything that's not Jesuit or Vatican, they say is pagan. So since the Vatican vilifies everything pagan, we do have to try to retain a sense of equanimity when we're looking at pagan religion. But Rome did integrate all of these religions into kind of a central theology. So just read this part. Moses wrote that the sons of God saw, these are the Nephilim, these are the Anunnaki, and possibly the fallen Pleiadian. I think there's some fallen Pleiadian and some not fallen Pleiadian. Saw the daughters of men that they were fair, and they took them wives of all they chose. They were giants in the earth in those days, and after that the sons of God came in unto the daughters of men, and they bare children to them, and became mighty men, which were of old, men of renown. So this is, of course, whenever you read the Bible or a scripture, you have to realize that you are reading what they want you to read. So you have to realize the spin that's being put on this. Because, so since this is the UN headquarters, UN is such an important idea that if you go back to World War I and World War II and you study those deeply, you will see that the objective of World War I and even the presidents and leaders during that time were working on a UN at that time, and they actually used the drama of those wars to create the UN. UN equals 35 when you add the U and the N together, which is another all-seeing eye symbol. So this is the place where the fallen angels landed, the place where ancient Baal worship and blood sacrifice took place, and a place that has been spiritually marked as evil. And so then it's a little bit curious to think of Jesus going up to this place and saying, upon this rock I will build this church. And then that church turned into the evil empire of the Vatican, who basically took Joshua and sort of turned him into a fictional character with a different name, and sort of rewrote some of his allegiances. So now we see him having allegiances to these places, which are extremely suspicious. In 1666, Louis, I think that's the 14th of France, authorized the building of an observatory in Paris to measure longitude. This is the beginning of the Paris Zero Meridian. Believe it or not, according to the Paris Zero Meridian, Mount Hermon in the ancient territory of the Dan and the Danites is located at 33 degrees east of the Paris Zero Meridian longitude and 33 degrees north of the equator latitude. The 33rd degree became an important part of Freemasonry. Now, the Catholics tried to keep Freemasonry officially separate from Catholicism by saying they would excommunicate anybody, but that was just a show. They're all in the same boat. Each of them, they have an oar. They do fight amongst themselves. The houses of control fight amongst themselves, but basically they're all in the same boat. Probably due to a history that dates back to the Knights Templar, the French Moravian dynasty, and their family ties to the Danites. See our chapter on Dan in the Guardians of the Grail. So this is a favorite scripture for a lot of people who are talking about the end times right now, and they are using the prophecy. This is prophecy that is written by the Vatican. So what we have to do is we have to realize that these Nephilim that fell, they call themselves gods, and you can believe that if you want to, but I choose not to. They are long-lived. I think there is something that we can call a god, but I think it's way, way above all of these jokesters who came down here and called themselves gods among us as early primitive people. I don't think they are gods. So what I want to say is that if you, whenever you're thinking about prophecy, you need to realize who wrote the prophecy. So we'll keep that in mind while we read this. But as the days of Noah, there will also be so the coming of the Son of Man. For in the days of Noah, they were eating and drinking and marrying and giving in marriage until the day that Noah entered the ark, and they did not know until the flood came and took them all away. Well, they're planning a tidal wave. And do you think that they have enough technology to create this? I think they have enough technology to create this. The only way that they wouldn't be able to create this is if there were enough good guys on the ground. I think there's a civil war between the military, the positive and the negative military, and other houses of control on the planet. And that would be causing the interference. Otherwise, they should completely be able to create a big wave. In these days, if you study Zecharia Sitchin, his theory is that the ice cap shifted and fell into the ocean, and that caused the big wave, and that the Anunnaki knew that was going to happen, and so they tried to leave mankind out of it, but then they fought amongst themselves, and Enki ended up telling his offspring Napishtim about the flood and instructed him to build an ark that would tumble, and that all worked apparently very well, and it was recorded in the tablets. A different story, of course, was told by the Vatican. The Vatican includes the story of God tries to save the people. Well, Enlil was actually Yahweh, and he did not try to save the people. He was against trying to save the people. Enki tried to save the people. And then the Vatican version also puts a heavy dose of human guilt into that. It has nothing to do with human guilt. It has to do with the Ice Age. All right. Well, this writer of this article does cut to the chase here about that. What in their prophecy, what they are predicting is another Messiah. So they wrote it. They're going to fulfill it. It has to do with the UN, and it has to do with the Pope, and that's why we're over here talking about Mount Hermon. So I'm not sure exactly which path this writer gets to this, but I tend to agree that they are going to have a Messiah come out, and they also in an environment of fear, and they will try to create these prophecies. Okay, so back in Manhattan, let's take a quick look at the shape of this building here. From the side, it looks pretty strange, but this main heading here, and they do it twice. They're showing you the direction. This is a 209 heading, which is it's a 9/11 gateway. Sorry to make that mouth sound. Sorry. Okay, I'm gonna pull this farther out. All right, well, just to show you where this line goes, it kind of cuts off Roanoke Island and goes through South Carolina, or North Carolina, really. So I don't know. Probably it is significant. I just need more time to look at the line. All right, so in the simple and English gematria, UN equals I, and NASA, and some other things, but these are probably your most important esoteric connections. Okay, so after the UN, the Pope is going to go to a multi-faith service, because he's everybody's Pope, not just the Catholics' Pope, at the National September 11th Memorial Museum. So you just grab this, you throw it right in here, and you see, first of all, we have a 9 and a 14, and if you add a 9 to a 14, you end up with a 23, which is again a 923. So even though this happens on the 925 date, they are still pointing at the 923. I did do the Pope's birth numbers, and I think that he has 923 and 927 heavily in his numbers. So something's up with 923. I guess I don't have to tell you that, but down here we have a 23 and a 9. It's an upside down 9, but it's a 623, and we saw this recently in gematria, and I said, oh, we should remember this, and now I've already forgotten it. Okay, well, also we have here the 86 and the 68 number that I've been talking about, having to do with the stock market and the Bride of Christ. But also this, if you add that this way, this is an 11, and that's a 911 going that way. Same kind of thing here. There's a lot to say, of course, about the National September 11th Memorial and Museum, and this line that I've been talking about, the line that goes from the Georgia Guidestones right here, it goes straight up through the Washington Monument and straight up through the Freedom Tower. And that's where the Pope's going to be. So he's going to be right on this line, and this line is 44 degrees heading going north. It's a different heading going south. But the important thing, one of the many important things about this is that, for one thing, the Freedom Tower, this installation, you probably realize this, anybody who's making it to my videos, this is an Orion construction. This is the belt of Orion right here. So that's one of the important things. Another important thing is that in the star maps found all over the world, and I learned this from Wayne Herschel, and he has a great book called Hidden Records that you can get on Amazon, and he has a great website that you can study for free, hiddenrecords.com, and he has found these star maps all over the world, and what it basically boils down to is you have 3 hills or pyramids or some other kind of thing like that, which represent the star of Orion, the 3 stars of Orion. Those point towards the 7 hills of the Pleiades, which in our case is the 7 hills of Washington, D.C. over here. Back out and I'll show it to you. So there's symbolic hills for Washington, D.C. And then in the Egyptian star maps, the Pleiades are formed into a leg of Taurus, and it actually forms a W, which is another source possibly of the 23, almost as if it's a return of the Pleiadians. Hopefully the good Pleiadians. I think there's good Pleiadians. But what I want to say is, so there's the 7 hills here. The 7 hills symbolize the Pleiades, and they point towards, in the sky, they point towards the star of Ra, which here on our East Coast is symbolized by the Georgia Guidestone. So this is a large star map, and this is mirrored all over. This happens again and again and again all over the world. And you can tell it's important because they've gone to a lot of trouble. It goes right through these power centers. So if you haven't heard about these star maps, it's because they didn't want you to know. So go ahead and just be a rebel and learn about that. Now this star map, ours on the East Coast, on our East Coast, goes even farther. If you follow the line straight out, and it's kind of hard to see which line it is, but if you follow this line straight out, it goes, and this is a straight line that goes through right through the middle of the Freedom Tower, and I found this line. Someone might have found it before me, but I didn't find any references to it when I found it. Anyway, I also found that it connects to ancient Babylon. So I'm going to pause this so we can take a look over there. All right, so we'll come over here, and this is the area where they're reportedly destroying all kinds of artwork and ancient. I'm going to have to wait for this to load. Hold on. So while we're waiting for that to load over there, the reason why I'm showing you ancient Babylon is because it lines up with this whole line, and we see that the Pope is basically going every place on this line except for the Georgia Guidestones. So the next place that he's going to go is he's going to visit with 3rd and 4th graders in a classroom at Our Lady Queen of Angels School in East Harlem. So if we put that into the geometric counter, we again get 924. Now he's here on the 25th, of course, but there's an extra 1 there, so you can add that in. And then down here we have a 923 and also a 37, which is indicative of the 12th prime. It was a 1221 prime mirror and a 3773 mirror that they like to throw into their symbolism having to do with creation. I think it's a creation number, a star matrix number. So this is a 9, the whole thing, and it's a 925, see? And it's also a 922. So you can kind of see why the Pope wanted to come here. Now I'm trying to get this onto Google Earth because I think the location is really important too. I'm going to guess, since this is in East Harlem, there's mostly minorities here. We saw during 9/11, we saw that that's where George Bush was. He was visiting with minority children, and I have a video on my blog that shows that they were involved in some black magic with the children. They were having the children repeat back some words having to do with kites and planes hitting and steel burning and things like that. So that was a black magic action, and I hope that the Pope is not going to involve any children in black magic, because I think that is nasty. All right, let's just come down here, and on my outro you'll see a drawing where I draw out Isis here. I could draw it again, because like this, and there's a lot more detail here, but she has some hair like this. She has an earpiece Little spiral. There's a little spiral here. I don't know which directions these go. But the main thing about this that's important having to do with our part of the world, oh, it won't let me. Well, first of all, I'll draw it and then I'll bring you in. There's an eye right here. And right here is Saddam Hussein's palace. And you can see this line that goes out and this line that goes out. And it almost looks like the Capitol building, the way you have an eye and these lines that go out. I could measure this to see the angle of this line, but this line, so I think this, you know, it roughly looks like a 33-degree angle. I haven't measured it yet, but this line right here goes to the Freedom Tower, Washington Monument, and the Georgia Guidestones. And this line, actually I can't remember where this goes. I'll try to figure this out and tell you. Okay, so this line basically goes to Lake Titicaca in Peru, and there's a story over there about a god, Viracocha, rising out of the lake and teaching the people, being a benevolent god, like a Venus teacher, kind of a god. And then when he, at the end of his life, he walked on water and disappeared. He didn't die. He just walked out on water and went away. That's the way the story goes. So that's the top and the bottom of this vision. You can see that you have to kind of come in quite a bit here to see these things. This is another ziggurat. And I think, I can't remember which of the Anunnaki gods this is dedicated to, but this spiral right here is Saddam Hussein's palace. Now, spiral itself is a connected word to all of these things. Actually, I don't think I have to look it up. I'll just, I think it equals Matthew and Bergoglio and Blue Apple. Well, we're going to get to Central Park, and it does have a 911 in the gematria, and so I hope you'll stay tuned for this. And I know these are long, but you know, in case this turns out to be a very important world event for us as a family of men, I think it's worth it to go ahead and take the time and explain as many things as I can. I am holding back. I could go into a lot more depth on these things, but I really want to just have fun, show you a smattering of what's going on behind the curtain here. All right, well, I hope you enjoyed this, and I'll talk to you soon.